My name is Helen Ashford. I'm 36 years old. 3 weeks ago, I stood in the marble lobby of the most expensive restaurant in Atlanta, holding a box of desserts I baked with my own hands for my sister's baby shower. While a hostess checked her seating chart twice and confirmed there was no chair with my name on it. My sister looked up from her mimosa and said, "Why don't you try that dirty pub across the street? I hear it's more your speed." My mother lifted her glass and added, "It suits you perfectly." I smiled, I said, "I'll do that," and I walked out. What they saw through that pub's front window 40 seconds later drained the color from both their faces. But their faces aren't the story. The story is what I had to choose 3 weeks later, on a rainy Saturday night, with my whole future sitting at one table and my family falling apart at another. Let me back up, because you need to see the pub first. The Kettle Black sits on Riverside Row, in a 100-year-old brick building with a green door I refuse to repaint. I live upstairs. My commute is 14 steps. 14 people call me chef. My family believed I tended bar there for years. My mother told people I was in the service industry, still finding her footing, and I never corrected her. Not at Thanksgiving, not at my stepfather's funeral, not once. There's a framed certificate hanging in my kitchen by the dish pit, where only the people who sweat for it can see it, because a year ago, this pub earned a star from the guide. My crew cried into their aprons the night we found out. I drove straight to my mother's house to tell her, sat outside with the engine running, rehearsing it in the mirror. Then through the window I saw her laughing on the phone. "Oh, Helen, still at that bar, bless her heart." Some people find their level. I drove home, hung the certificate where only my kitchen could see it, and told myself that was strength. It took a year to understand it was fear standing up straight. You need to know why I hid it. My father, Frank Ashford, worked the line at a diner most of his life, forearms scarred, Sundays reserved for a cast iron skillet with fa scratched into the handle by his own knife. He made hand pies for anyone who showed up hungry, neighbors, strangers, a trucker who never left before dark. "Nobody leaves my table hungry," he'd say. He died at 49, apron still on. Within a month, my mother cleaned him out of the house, his aprons, his knives, his cookbooks gone like evidence. I found his skillet sitting on top of the trash can at the curb. I pulled it out, hid it under my bed, and 6 months later, when my mother enrolled me in a business program because no daughter of mine is going to sweat in a kitchen, I finished high school. Bought a one-way ticket to Chicago and never looked back. The skillet came with me. 11 years, station by station, I built myself into a chef nobody in my family knew existed. I went by Chef Ash, no last name. I'd learned at that curb exactly what happens to the things I love when my family gets a good look at them, so I stopped showing them anything. It worked for 18 years, until a rented calligraphy envelope arrived in April. My sister Madison, 29, married into money, was expecting a girl, and the baby shower would be held at Meridian, the glass and marble palace directly across the street from my pub. Of all the restaurants in Atlanta, my family had picked the one place close enough that I could watch their valets from my own bar stools. I considered declining. Then my mother called and asked, sweet as syrup, if I'd do the desserts as my gift. 120 pastries free. Because the ones Meridian quoted were simply criminal. Not a guest with a gift, the help, with an invoice she intended never to see. And that same night, I saw the sonogram of my niece in the family group chat. I'd promised myself at my father's funeral I'd never be the one who walked away from the family table first. So I said yes. For 2 weeks I watched Meridian's staff hall in flower arrangements the size of golf carts and hang a 6-foot gold banner across their glass front, Madison and Baby V. My mother texted me directly, "Wear something simple, Sunday, nothing with a smell." Fried food clings to fabric, sweetheart. I read it in my chef's coat, in a kitchen that had earned a star and said nothing. Old habit. A week before the shower, at Madison's registry brunch, I rode in her husband Tyler's new truck and a folder slid out from under the driver's seat. A lease agreement, 36 months. A payment that could rent an apartment, and a sticky note. Final notice. Call us, I said nothing. Wasn't my business. But I filed it away, the way you filed the smell of gas. The Thursday before the shower, I drove pastry samples to my mother's for approval. Her book club sat in the sunroom like a tribunal. My mother took one bite of a lemon tart people pay real money for and said, "Sweet, very home style." "We'll manage," then to her friends. "This is my eldest, Helen. She helps out at a bar downtown." One of the women snapped her fingers at me twice, like calling a dog. "While you're up, honey," and I looked at my mother, waiting for something. For half a second her face went white, not embarrassed pink, white. Then it passed and she laughed her sunroom laugh. "Get Barbara a refill, would you?" I refilled Barbara's coffee. I drove home with my hands steady on the wheel, and somewhere in that drive, a decision started baking. That same week, my landlord Gus, 74, the man who sold me this pub 2 years after hiring me, told me a development company called Crestline wanted to buy his building. They'd already bought most of the block. Their flagship, Meridian, sat right across from me. Gus had first refusal written into our deal, but his son wanted him in Phoenix by summer. 6 weeks to get your financing lined up, he said. Then Crestline raised their offer 20%, and my loan officer told me straight. The numbers were good, but the committee wanted proof this wasn't a one good year fluke. Visibility. That word standing in my doorway like a bill collector. Then 2 calls came within a day of each other. A food journalist wanted to write my first full profile, name, face, history. I said no, same as I always had, and spent half the night wondering why no tasted different now. And a television producer called about a national food program building an episode around hidden gems of the South. They wanted to film a full evening service at the Kettle Black. The date they'd locked, the Saturday 3 weeks out, the 1-year anniversary of my star, the same week as Gus's deadline. My loan officer nearly cheered. That broadcast is your loan committee's confidence. Gift-wrapped, and word was moving through Atlanta kitchens that the guide's anonymous re-inspectors had started their rounds. Any table, any Saturday could decide whether my star lived or died. I signed the release. My hand shook once, and I was angry at it. The night before the shower, alone in my kitchen at midnight, I took down my father's skillet and made 1 hand pie, peach, crimped shut with a fork, fried in that same black pan. I found a tin box, set the pie inside on parchment beside a photograph of my father midlaff at his old flat top, and wrote a card. "Your daughter should know who her grandfather was." He'd have fed the whole party. "Love, Helen." I tied it with red butcher's twine and set it on top of the pastry boxes so I couldn't chicken out. It was the first thing I'd made for my family as myself in 19 years. Sunday morning, plain navy dress, no perfume, I wheeled my cart across the street. 40 seconds, door to door. A walk I'd counted 100 times from my bar stools without ever making it. Inside Meridian, marble underfoot, a harpist tuning, a seating chart on a brass easel with 40 names in calligraphy. A young cook at the service entrance went still at the sight of me. The sous chef appeared, wiping her hands, and whispered, "Chef Ash, from the Kettle." Half the cooks in this neighborhood had eaten at my bar on their nights off. "We staged our menu against yours," she said. "It's an honor." I put a finger to my lips and walked out to find my seat. I read that seating chart twice. Cousins, Tyler's fraternity brothers, every woman from the sunroom, including finger-snapping Barbara. No Helen, no Ashford. A hostess apologized she didn't have me on the list. My sister floated over in blush chiffon, one hand on her bump. "This is awkward. The room caps at 40. And honestly, this crowd isn't really your scene." Her eyes drifted toward the crosswalk, toward my life. "Why don't you try that dirty pub across the street?" "I hear it's more your speed." My mother arrived at her shoulder with a champagne flute. "It suits you perfectly." Behind them, on a silver stand, my 120 pastries rose in perfect rows under a card that read Desserts by Meridian. Something in my chest went quiet, not broken. Balanced, I smiled with my whole face. "You're right," I said. "I'll do that." I set the tin box with the red twine on the gift table for the baby and walked toward the glass doors. What I forgot, walking back into my own pub, hand on my green door, is that Meridian's front room is a wall of glass with a clear view of everything. I wasn't staging a reveal. I was going to work. Those are different things, until you're watching from across the street. The bell rang its cracked ring, and my floor did what it does every day. "Morning, chef." My sous chef slid my coat onto my shoulders, H. Ashford stitched in gold, chef owner underneath, and I took my place at the pass, all of it visible through 40 feet of glass. My sous chef glanced over my shoulder. "Slow and delighted, chef. There are people across the street pressed against the glass like it's an aquarium." Older lady in pearls, she's reading something out loud. Barbara had found the magazine profile from the spring, the one that ran with no photo. Chef Ash, the invisible hand behind the kettle black. The neighborhood pub that stunned the industry by earning a star. Whoever she is, she cooks like someone keeping a promise. My mother didn't move for a long time. My sister's mimosa tipped down her chiffon and she didn't notice. My phone lit up, mom calling. I turned it face down and called my first ticket. By the end of service, I had 17 missed calls and a text thread reading like a hostage negotiation in exclamation points. Monday evening, my mother and sister came in person, walking past the brick and brass reviews they'd ignored for years. My mother's opener, "Helen, why didn't you tell us?" Not "I'm sorry." Not "we were cruel to you in front of 40 people." Us, as if my silence were the crime. Madison gushed about the friend's rate for a future dinner, 24 hours after offering me a dirty pub, now ordering it like an entree. I poured them water and said the book was full through fall. My mother squeezed my forearm, a gesture I had no childhood memory of. "We are so proud of you, sweetheart." The apology never arrived. My staff floated a plan: invite the family for a tasting, then leave them standing at the host stand for 2 hours while we sat every walk-in first. I drafted the invitation. Then I deleted it. My mother's whole life ran on one machine: decide who matters, arrange the chairs to prove it. If I lured her in just to humiliate her by the door, I wasn't breaking that machine. I was buying it, new operator, same equipment. So instead I told my staff to keep the book honestly full, and I waited. 10 days after the shower, it unraveled. Meridian's events office called Madison about the unpaid shower balance. The corporate card on file belonged to a startup that had been dissolved since Christmas. Tyler's leased truck went back on a flatbed. He developed a sudden calendar of investor meetings out of state, the kind you fly to with 2 suitcases. Madison called me, crying before I said hello, telling me about the frozen accounts and the apartment lease 3 months behind. Then she caught herself and said the sentence our mother installed in both of us: "Please don't tell Mom I told you." She can't have people knowing. Even collapsing, the family's first instinct was managing the audience. My mother went silent the operational way, skipped book club twice, dropped a garden tour she'd co-chaired for 9 years. Her circle had smelled the trouble, the invitations thinned. She was learning, at 61, that the door she'd run her whole life swings from the inside too. Then, one night after close, she knocked. Alone, no pearls, sitting stiffly on a bar stool, I'd never seen my mother sit at a bar. She told me something she'd never told either of us: that before my father died, she'd waited tables at a country club, and once at a banquet. A woman her own age had snapped her fingers for more coffee, while her 2 little daughters watched from the doorway, holding paper flowers. "You wouldn't remember," she said. "I would have been about 4, I told her. "I don't remember," she does. She'd made a vow over the sink that night, washing that uniform by hand. Her daughters would sit at the tables, never carry the pot. "When my father died," she said, "I looked at his aprons and I couldn't breathe. I wasn't throwing him away, Helen. I was throwing away the pot. And then you picked it up out of the trash and built your whole life around it. And every time I looked at you, I saw myself in that banquet room. And I could not stand it." I told her I was grateful she'd told me, and that understanding where the knife came from doesn't unstick it. She never said sorry that night. She was 61, and nobody had ever taught her the word held any power. She asked, stiff as new shoes, "What would you have me do?" I said the only honest thing I had. "I don't know yet, not perform. That's all I know." She left, and my phone buzzed twice, Gus's lawyer, ready to sign Monday, and the TV producer, confirming Saturday's film crew. 36 hours ticking. Saturday came wearing rain. Cameras threaded through my dining room, 62 covers booked, my father's hand pie on the menu in print for the first time. And 2 reservations nobody could place, a party requesting the full tasting, the kind of table you cook as if the guide itself is sitting in it, because you never know the face. Mid-service, 3 knocks at the back door. Sam came back with rain on his shoulders. "Chef, it's your sister. She soaked through, asking for you." Madison stood in the alley, 8 months pregnant, no umbrella, holding a single sheet of paper gone translucent in the rain, Tyler's handwriting. For the best, when things stabilize, he'd flown out that morning. The joint accounts were frozen. "I didn't know where else was open," she said, then broke completely. "At the shower, there wasn't a chair because I didn't put one." I told the planner the numbers worked better at 40. "I did it because you make me feel small just standing there. You always have. And now there's no chair for me anywhere, and the only door that's open is yours." I had about 3 seconds to decide who I was. I stepped back inside, called my sous chef to the pass, lifted my apron over my own head and put it on her. "Course 4 goes out under your hands. Everything does. You've been ready for a year." Then I found the producer. "We're done filming tonight. My family is coming apart in my alley. It's not going to be content." I took my father's skillet down, warmed his last hand pie in his own black pan, and brought Madison in through the kitchen, dripping, to the staff table in the corner. Nobody on my line blinked. I'd trained them, and their manners are mine. I set the plate in front of her with his photograph beside it. "Nobody leaves my table hungry," I said. "Not even the ones who hurt me." She ate our father's cooking for the first time in 19 years, crying the way you cry when the pain finally has a name. Every choice has a bill. The producer's parting words were cold as walk-in air, a one-time window gone. The broadcast slot went to a chef in Charleston, and with it, the loan committee's easy confidence. Monday morning, I signed for the building anyway, on the slower structure Gus had offered from the start, my savings down, the balance owed to him on a schedule. My second location, pushed a year or 2 out. Gus dropped the old brass keys into my palm and said nothing at all, which from Gus is a speech. I never did find out who the mystery table was. The star would keep or it wouldn't. The pie needed warming either way. That Sunday at 6 in the morning, someone knocked on my locked front door. Through the glass, my mother in blue jeans, hair in a plain elastic. I had never seen her in jeans in my life. "I still don't know how to say the thing you once said," she told me. "The word keeps sticking. I'd like to do something with my hands instead if you'll teach me." I let her in. We didn't hug. We're not a movie, we're a family, and families move in inches. I looped a plain canvas apron over her neck and showed her how to flour the board, how to fold, how dough tells your palms when it's had enough. She was terrible at it, and she stayed anyway. 2 weeks later, she tried to reorganize my host stand, and I sent her back to the dough. When her first tray came out lopsided and golden, I looked at her, flour to the elbows, and handed her own line back to her, wiped clean. "It suits you perfectly." She laughed and finally said the word. Here's where everyone landed. Madison moved into the small unit above my second floor and keeps my books 3 mornings a week, her first paycheck ever, framed like a diploma. Tyler surfaced in Charlotte with a lawyer-brokered support schedule, and I have nothing else to say about him. My mother lost her sunroom circle for good. That world was never built to miss anyone. Meridian is still thriving across the street. Crestline bought the block behind mine last month. I couldn't fix any of that, and I've stopped billing myself for it. In July, my niece arrived 7 pounds and furious. Madison named her Frankie. On her first Sunday home, my restaurant closed to the public for the only time all year. We added 3 leaves to the staff table. And my whole crooked family sat down together, Gus on video call from Phoenix, eating hand pies from a black skillet marked Fa, while Frankie slept through her own party. There was a chair for everyone. There was a chair to spare. I keep one empty on purpose now, and every Sunday somebody wanders in off Riverside Row and fills it. I spent 20 years trying to earn a seat at their table, and one rainy Saturday, I gave mine away instead. And here's what that traded me. Your worth was never something you prove to people who refuse to look. It's something you cook into the world anyway, until the ones who matter find their way to your kitchen.